You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 405. My name is Brando, and today it's like The Office UK meets The Office United States. Yeah, we were just talking off the air. My new friends, Amy and Jason, who are over the pond, across the pond. Is that a boring phrase at this point? So, Amy, you're in North London?
Yep.
Yeah. And Jason, you said you're in Bristol.
That's right. Yeah. So in the southwest of the UK. So the opposite side of the country.
Okay. I only know Bristol, Connecticut, which is not the same, obviously. So you're both going to have to teach me. We're not going to learn about your time at Hyde Park seeing Guns N' Roses. You're going to teach me what it's like to, ask for a bottle of water. Sorry, you said that off the air, Amy. I had to say it. You can make fun of my water, dogs, daughters. Let's talk, coffee talk. You can make fun of my accent as well. And if you're watching,
don't worry, we're British. We're going to take the piss out of you.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, just so you know.
Take the piss. That's something I don't say. But if I said that, I would look like a douchebag. Americans. I'm going to take the piss out of you. But if coming out of you, I'm going to take the piss out of you. It's funny.
We just sound like Mary Poppins when we say it.
I know you do. You sound like
It's charming. We can get away with a lot.
Yeah, I know. If you with that accent, you can say anything, and it can sound so intelligent. I love it. So
Like
our
a bottle of
intelligence,
water.
our intelligence level is going to be lifted today in this episode. If you're watching on Zoom, Amy's got a white Guns N' Roses shirt on. Anything special? Wondering? Oh, it's not the shirt that I have. What's
So it's one that I bought on Friday at the Hyde Park gig, outside. Because by the time I'd got to the merch stand, it had all gone. And this is one that I don't have. So it's the three original guys all kind of...
What's a nice shirt?
Skulled up, and then all the dates on the back.
I like that shirt.
Very cool. Yeah. Most of my others are very Appetite for Destruction focused. So this is the first one that's really branched out.
Okay. That's something that I look for. I bought a white shirt when I went to Baltimore, I believe, the last year's North American tour, and it just has the cross on the top left crest and has the design on the back. Usually it's like a black shirt, typical. So I wanted something different. So that's cool. Jason, did you get any memorabilia or shirts when you went?
I didn't actually. I did go and have a look, have a little queue because, like yourself, I do like the posters or artwork from gigs. I've got a couple of those from Guns N' Roses and Metallica and a couple of other people. So I'm always keen to get those, although they're an absolute nightmare, A, to get and B, to keep whilst you're at a gig. But the rest of it, I thought it was quite... sorry, Amy, I didn't... I've seen your T-shirt, and this is actually one of the ones where I'm not saying that, but I thought they were quite over the top nowadays, and that sounds a bit weird, almost like I remember seeing from a distance one of the long sleeve T-shirts, and it was a little bit like print on the front, print on the arm, all the way down the arm, all the way down this arm, all the way over the back. And it was a little bit like, hey, where can we print more shit on it? And I was a bit put off by it, if I'm brutally honest, but maybe that's just because I'm old. I'm not sure.
Well, the London one, so I really love how they bring out graphics for every gig, and the London one was again Axel Duff and Slash coming out of a telephone box as skeletons, which looks cool. Wouldn't wear it. So it and I've spent quite a long time trying to track down merch from gigs where I didn't buy it and I want it. And
that's the worst.
So eBay has just been rinsed, but they're either way too expensive or they're just a bit like, I don't think I need them as so the one for Tottenham Hotspur last year was them on the St. George Cross, so the England flag, which in the UK, the England flag has certain connotations with certain kinds of nationalists that I don't really want to associate with, whether they've got slash on it or not. So
Mhm.
there's some merch which, yeah, just doesn't quite fit. But I did bring my sister to the gig, who's not been to a Guns N' Roses show before, and she said, I've never seen so many people wearing the band merch at the band gig before. It's nothing but Guns N' Roses t-shirts. And I was like, and me too, I've never seen that before, but there's something about the style, the design, especially the original, like the old school albums, where it just looks great and people are fine wearing it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the, and I'm not going to be like that. If you see a random person on the street, name 3 Guns N' Roses songs, but it's a cool logo. Even if you're not a fan of the band, it just looks cool. And one of the reasons why they're my favorite band, the name is one of the best names of all time. So it just sounds like a cool phrase if you weren't aware of that they're a band for some reason.
Mhm.
I always fear that 3-song thing when I'm wearing a t-shirt, because I wear loads of band t-shirts. I know loads of music. I'm obsessed with music, obviously, clearly, because otherwise we wouldn't be chatting, right? But I'd panic. I'd be like, oh my God, Sweet Child of Brazil or something. You know what I mean? Something random, like sort of right, but completely wrong.
I gotcha. And by the way, the telephone booth, is that a reference to Doctor Who?
I thought that as well, but the colors are red telephone box because we famously used to have them everywhere.
And the Doctor Who was a police box and it's blue.
Okay.
And these were red telephone boxes.
Shows what I know. I'm aware of Doctor Who. Is it bad that I've never seen an episode? Okay. All right. I thought that was going to be like, I've never seen Star Wars, but that's more universal. Doctor Who seems to be kind of okay.
You've never seen Star Wars?
I've seen Spaceballs like 200 times. Does that count?
But that is funny.
Let's
just be honest.
It's classic. Weird. It's I always say it's kind of like what the opposite of like what a virgin would say, like, oh, it's never happened. I'm like, it's just never happened. And it's usually Star Wars is associated with nerds, like, in the stereotypical kind of way. It's just never happened. I don't know. Like I said, I've seen Spaceballs one too many times, or not enough, I guess, depending. And by the way, Jason, I would be remiss before we move on to the show, your shirt, because you showed me off the very cool.
Yeah, so Sarah Blasco, who's Ozzy Osbourne's, or was Ozzy Osbourne's bass player, and he made a Ozzy style t-shirt, the Bark at the Moon thing with a cat in the middle. And I thought, obviously, you love cats, got to put it on. Beautiful. And I love cats as well, because he's behind us somewhere.
Your cat Milo is on the guitar amp. I love it.
Yeah, he's just chilling. He'll come over in a minute.
My cat's one of them. Just, I swear, because I'm without baby Brownstone today. My wife took him out for an adventure today, and it's if I get a moment of sleep when he's just being quiet, another cat who apparently the cats mimic a baby cry to get what you want. Yeah. He's like meow 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 meow, and I guess I'm like, you have food. I have to follow him all the way out to the kitchen. I'm like, you have food. Look at it. He just wants me to watch him eat. So let's all escape talking about Guns N' Roses for a little bit. So Hyde Park, I'm not familiar. Obviously, can either one of you, I guess, whoever wants to take it first, kind of explain what it's a giant park that has a venue in it. Can you have you been there as kids? Is it super famous? Who else has been there? So, Jason, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So Hyde Park is literally a park in London. It is a very famous spot. It's a large green area in London, which doesn't happen that often. So it doesn't have every day. It doesn't have a specific area for gigs, but they take over a large sort of end of the park to put the gigs. I mean, it swallows it. To be fair, I'm not sure actually how big Hyde Park is, but it's bloody big. And yeah, so it's in one corner of it. Hyde Park's got the Diana Memorial in it, and a couple of other things I'm clearly going to miss. The Serpentine in there. If anyone from England's probably shouting at me right now, other things that are in there. But yeah, so they've had gigs in Hyde Park since the 70s. So everyone from Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, Taylor Swift, Pink, all sorts of things. So they quite often do like a summer of shows. And this year, Guns N' Roses is part of that. So Pink was on the week before, Bruce Springsteen's on next week, and so that makes it quite an unusual setup for a gig.
Okay.
Because things like the bar, the merch booths, as we were alluding to just now, they're all set up for the summer. So they're not just pop-up little tents where someone hopes they don't get wet, because it is England. They're more like semi-permanent buildings that have a strange, weird sort of style to them. It's a little bit like being on a film set. There's all these like French-looking buildings one side and Chinese buildings the other side. You know what I'm saying, Amy? That's kind of like that film set thing, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit Wes Anderson, actually. It's quite sort of pretty, and it's almost like a summer long festival. It's called BST, British Summertime, and it has another stage within the space. There's a whole other British Airways sponsored stage. You could spend the whole day there quite easily, just eating and watching music and buying merch and things. The Hyde Park is part of the Royal Parks, and on one side there's like the Royal Albert Hall, there's a Royal Albert Memorial. It's right next to a really wealthy part of London called Park Lane, and Knightsbridge, and people ride their horses very demurely around the horse track, around the edges and things. So it's super posh, as you know, kind of where it is, and it's an incredible space. I saw Pink actually on Sunday, and she actually flew over the crowd. So they set up cranes and the whole shebang. So it was a really different stage experience to see what it is. But yeah, it's set, like Jason said, it's set up for the whole summer with like real global legends. Tonight, Blackpink is headlining.
So, yeah, Pink and Blackpink.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hey, Amy, just a quick question about the Pink thing. It wasn't you that threw the ashes on stage, was it?
Oh,
No, Jason, because that's bonkers. Yeah, somebody had thrown their mother's ashes onto this, and she has lots of people who are fans. And there was a guy, there's like a running joke that he'd bring her a wheel of brie every time he sees her, and she really likes cheese, and it was very kind of sweet. And people were like handing her like soft toys and artwork that they'd made, but this was really mad. And there is a trend of people throwing stuff at female artists at the moment, which is just weird.
So strange. It's just so strange. I get it.
She's a great host and managed it very well, but people need to check themselves. It's crazy.
I know. I mean, what happened with BB Rexa? Just because the guy thought it was funny to throw a phone, and she got like stitches and got hurt. I mean,
I think was it Kelsey Ballerini or Morris who got hit as well just the other day. It's mad.
It's a silly, it's scary, I should say. It's a scary thing to happen, because my mind immediately goes to Dimebag Darrell. I mean, you can have these viral moments, you know, thankfully BB Rex is okay. You can be like, oh, that's crazy, the ashes, that's almost funny, but it could get not funny real quick. So,
can you imagine doing that back in the 90s with Axel?
I was just about to say that.
Just any of those things, even the Wheel of Brie, you know, like, no, that would have stopped the show. Yeah.
It happened a couple years ago. I think it was just with Slash and the Conspirators, who, by the way, have announced they're going to tour again
in January.
Yeah,
I have yet to see them, so you know what? I'm looking forward to it. You know,
Amazing.
we could talk about throughout the conversation if that means anything with a supposed new Guns N' Roses album or music, if that's gonna, you know, be a deterrent or whatever it is, or just it's not happening. That's why he's touring again. I think that's a deeper question that we can get into right now, but I have yet to see them. I want to see them. But a few years ago, somebody ran on stage and like tried to tackle or hug Slash, and he like slipped off, and nothing happened. And Slash didn't really miss a beat. But again, you know, people just going on for their 15 seconds of TikTok fame. All it takes is one. All it takes is one to make it super, super dangerous. So don't do that to Axel. He has enough problems standing up on 2 feet.
Oh yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, which we'll get to it. So what number show is this for either each of you? Amy, what number show for Guns N' Roses is this for you? How
So
many
this
times
is
have
the
you seen them?
fourth time I've seen them.
Fourth? Okay. And what was the first time you saw them?
So I went in June 2017
Okay.
in London. So it was their first Not in This Lifetime tour round. I went to Berlin to see them the following year, supported by Manic Street Preachers, which was amazing. And then last year at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, and then this year. But I've seen Slash a few times before that with Miles Kennedy.
Did you were you like me? This is never gonna happen when you because I had no the only time I saw Guns N' Roses air quote was in 2002 with Buckethead. So I had no opportunity to see the actual, Slash and Axl on stage. So that was your first time in 2017.
My intent was to see Axl and Slash back together. That's what I was interested in, or Slash and his stuff. I wasn't interested in the Chinese democracy movement as much.
Movement. I like that. I haven't heard of it in that phrase, Chinese democracy movement. Jason, what about you? What number gig was this for you?
I think this was my fifth.
Okay.
If I'm honest, mine dates back a little bit further than Amy's. I've actually had to write it down. That's how long ago it was. It was 1992. Was the first time I saw it. So, and most people who like Guns N' Roses do exactly that face. So,
Wow.
And then a couple of times, like 92, 93 era around there. So I saw the real Guns N' Roses. The Dangerous, we're going to be 3 hours late. We don't care. Slash virtually falling asleep on stage, that type of thing. And I tell you what, it was amazing.
Where was it?
So the very first time I saw them was actually at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert.
You were there?
So,
wow.
Yeah, so I've got a bit of that was my first big gig that I ever went to, and I was 13.
Wow.
I don't remember. My friend Jake, I will send you this. We've been friends since we were about 10, maybe. We're still friends now. And we got tickets to that because he's a huge Queen fan. And we both went, and talk about worlds ago. I'm 46 years old now. That was the era when your parents got me the ticket, probably did loads of housework or whatever to pay for it, and they drove me to the bus station, which was 6 miles away. They dropped me off at the bus at 6 a.m. and went, here's your lunch money, here's a 20 quid for a t-shirt, here's a £5 for a beer, don't get pissed, don't get arrested, see you later. Yeah.
Wow.
My parents were brilliant, to be fair. It's really good. And they do that like all the time. And so, we were in Wembley with 70,000 other people, 3 people from the front. And Jake and I have done this to every single gig we've ever been to. My dad never understood how we did it. We were always right at the front. And even now, in our 46 years old, we went to see Skid Row recently, and we were 3 people from the front. We were like, we don't care. We're the old dudes, but we're rocking out, man. So it was quite spectacular. They did a few songs back then with everybody else. They clearly weren't late because it was a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it was such an iconic gig. You can go on YouTube and watch it, and you can put it on your smart TV, and it's very surreal for me to watch because I was such a young kid at the time. And then I saw them. Where else? Milton Keynes Bowl, which is another big gig that they did here in the UK, and that was very similar, actually, Amy, to the British Summertime thing, in the sense of Milton Keynes Bowl was set up for about a month's worth of gigs. Metallica was on maybe 2 weeks before, and I went to see them. It was either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. I can't quite remember, but I went to see them, and then Guns N' Roses, and I do remember that one quite well, because I was with a friend of mine who's very, very short, and there is the reason I say this is part of the story. And this big African American guy came up to us, and he said, well, you're not going to see fuck all. And I thought, oh, okay, just really randomly. Never met the guy before. Pointed at her, said, "You're not going to see anything," and swore at her. And we both looked really miffed. And I was like, "Well, that's not very nice." And he said, "I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm with the band." He said, "Therefore, don't make a scene, but I'm going to give you something." And he opened, it was like the weirdest thing ever, opened his jacket and he pulled out one of the golden circle wristbands and gave her and I one of those so she could see. So, and that was, whatever it was, 1993.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I still remember that. You know, that guy obviously will not. He did that thousands of times, but it made the world of difference to the pair of us. And that was, yeah, it was fantastic. And then I skipped all of the sort of modern day iteration with the Chinese democracy era. And I kick myself for that because I actually think that's a good record now. I don't think it's a good Guns N' Roses record. I think it's a good Axl record. And then I saw them on the last tour in Portugal.
Oh, wow.
Which was really good. So if any UK listeners are watching this, listening to us right now, go and see a gig abroad, because I paid £60 to go, which is really cheap. And it was really, really good. And you guarantee good weather. We had a nice week away, me and my girlfriend, and we went there and did the gig on a Saturday. And it was her first Guns N' Roses gig.
I love that. Look at this. We're talking all eras. I love it. You as a 13-year-old having this moment that you still think about all these years later. And all these years later, you're taking your girlfriend to her first one. So it's like all these generations and memories being created by this band that we can't believe is actually still around. Imagine if I did reviews back then.
I must admit, one of the things I noticed at this gig was, and watching Glastonbury on the TV, was how many young people there were.
Yeah.
So there was so many more people like I was now. And that's a band that's been around since, like, what was it, 87, 84? I can't even remember when Appetite for Destruction came out. And they're still drawing a crowd of that size and of that young age. And I think that's incredible. Like, that's legacy. That's
why you should believe the reviews given on this podcast as opposed to anything you read in the Independent or that Neil McCormick guy that wrote that people were leaving. They weren't. It's just such I've got
such a thing about that, Brando. If I'm honest, I cannot believe the comments by people watching on the TV, by people in the press. They were not watching the same gig we were. It wasn't the worst headliner ever. Yeah, Axl was a bit rough in places, but who cares?
It's clickbait rubbish. But the reviews for the Hyde Park gig has been universally positive from what I've seen.
Fans who go say the same thing. And if you're looking to pick apart Axl, you can do it. If you want to pick up, you could pick apart anybody. You know, it's I say this as a Slash fan. No one ever criticizes him. He's got a little bit of a dad bod, and that's okay. But no one ever says.
Have you seen him do a handstand? Like, the guy's stacked.
He's strong, but you know, he's me. He's got a little bit of a belly, but it's nothing. He's also I don't know if he's 60 yet, or I forget, but he's
7.
He is of that age group also. But if you look at Axl, who looks great, people just like he doesn't look like he's 20 years old anymore. Let's go all in.
Nor do I. I did not look like I did when I went to that first gig. He clearly doesn't look like the same. That's because we're people. We age.
I know.
It just happens, man.
When I saw Guns N' Roses the first
of the hat and the shades, which are mirrored, and then the hair. So he's already iconic, just a bit thicker. And you can't really take that down because then he just delivers. But I think that's the problem about anyone who really puts himself out there like Axl always has, compared to somebody who's quite cool just being, in his own lane, is you can't tear them down. You can't tear someone like Slash down because he clearly doesn't care, whereas Axl clearly does. And I think that's unfortunately why people will target him.
And why I don't think he does any interviews anymore is because anything can be picked apart and twisted a certain way. And hey, I'd rather see a 61-year-old Axl than any, AI voice thing or the greatest cover band ever that can sing just like he did in 1987 would not want to see that. Would rather see 61-year-old Axel. So let's talk about that. Amy, who did you go with? Did you go solo? Did you go with friends?
So I was on the viewing platform. I'm a wheelchair user due to long COVID. So
Sorry
I've
to hear
got
that.
really limited energy, basically. So the first 2 times I went to see them, I was moshing like crazy. The first time I was crying while moshing because I was so moved by the fact that Slash and Axel were together on stage. And the wheelchair access area is, really, there's not a lot of energy there. Obviously, everyone's in a wheelchair, but you will not find more diehard fans. And in that area, it's really like they are mouthing every single word. It's amazing. So I was lucky enough to bring my sister as my companion and wheelchair pusher, who had never seen Guns N' Roses before. She was really into that kind of California punk rock back in the 90s. So we used to listen to a lot of Offspring and No Doubt and Green Day and Garbage and all of that back in the day. And halfway through, she was like, okay, so Guns N' Roses has always been your little funny little obsession, your little funny little thing, but I really get it. I get it now. There was something about Slither when Duff started with that bass line, and she was like, this is the kind of bass line I really like. And of course, Duff is super punk, right? So I was like, right. So as a Slash fan, I'm like, so Slash is really influenced by the blues, that kind of like old school rock is where he's coming from. Duff's all punk, and that's where that kind of drive is, and that's why their whole section sounds so beautiful. And that's where she was really kind of coming alive. And I'd made her a playlist about here's how you get to know Guns N' Roses, and she's a massive fan of It's So Easy anyway. And then the big ones, of course. She was an amazing companion to take. She just threw herself in. I brought her my tour t-shirt from Berlin, so she was full merched out as well. And she's got 2 young children. She's currently breastfeeding, so she was pumping milk while throwing up the horns, listening to Sweet Child of Mine. It was poetic.
Man,
That sounds incredible. Nice work.
That does that. My wife's doing that now. It's like half the time when we wake up in the middle of the night at like 3 a.m. I have to pump. Can you feed him? Oh, it's like half asleep. We would love to bring him. I think it's too early. There was it might have been in a UK metal festival. I should have this up, that there was a mom who brought her 10-month-old to a show, and she
got a lot of grief for it, didn't she?
Yeah, well, the internet grief. But the baby obviously wearing headphones, seems smiling and everything. So I think he's 2 months now. In August, he'll be 4. I think that's a little too young to bring Harrison Rex to a GN'R show. But I think that's awesome. Good for mom. Good for sister mom to do that. And let me, I'm not going to forget, because I'm sitting in my wheelchair, sitting in as I'm rocking back and forth. This is actually a new one. So
you're literally rock and rolling.
Yeah, I'm actually rocking and rolling. I have the handicap logo of the tattoo of the handicap logo with the mohawk and the metal horns. I got that several years ago. So it's going to be interesting, and I'll talk about it when I go to New Jersey, because to see them in August. So I've been obviously handicapped for every concert that I've been to, but it's been like a progression. So I don't know if I mentioned this before. When I went to see Velvet Revolver, probably 2004 in, was it Velvet Revolver? I don't know. It was somewhere where we had to take a train. It was either Velvet or like Guns, early Guns in that era. And I wear leg braces. I do use a cane now. At the time, I wasn't using it. So I would just look like I'm limping. I've actually had cops, I've had girls say this to me. They think I'm walking like a cool, like I'm walking like I got to get some
like
swagger. I get swagger, which is a little part of it, I guess. But I mean, no, I have a neurological disability. So I'm going down the subway steps to try to, I got to be careful. I'm holding onto the railing, but I got to catch this train because the show ended really late. And I trip, and my knee gets stuck in between, like there's 2 railings. Just the way it's. So like my knee got stuck in there, and we had to wait to the next. But by the time we got it out, like we already missed the subway, so that was fun. And I used to be like you, Jason, where not top with the first 3 rows, but I would want to go. So, and I did this, I remember for Velvet, because it was a small place. I wanted to be right up front. So I would hold on to the front and I wouldn't let go. But by the time the show was over, like I could barely I was so physically tired and like my limp became more pronounced, but I'm like, I don't want to move. So now, and I talked about it, I went to see Buckethead Brain with that band Praxis last summer. And I'm at a point where, because my wife loves going to concerts, so I've been going to more lately, where it's just not fun for me all the time, where it's just a lot of walking and to get to your seats and to find handicap seats, which is always, sometimes it's not available. So you want to get the closest seat that's just right off like an entranceway. And I'm like, you know what? I just can't do this anymore. I need to get a wheelchair. And long story short, this took a while to go through insurance and in doctor's meetings. Like you really have to prove you're needed. So we just stopped at a pharmacy and got a travel chair. So we she wheeled me to Buckethead in a travel chair. And like your short friend, Jason, I was just like, it sucks. It's one thing, like now I bought handicap seats for Metallica and Guns N' Roses, but I'm in the back of wherever it was, Irving Plaza, wherever it was, Buckethead, but I'm in the back. I can barely see anything. So, but it's just interesting to see, but everyone gets out of your way. So it is interesting to hear. I want to ask Jason where, he sat and everything, but Amy, we'll get to, because the handicap experience, because there are obviously a lot of music fans that go out there, and some arenas are better than others. It's just it's an interesting. That's why I try to share my, what I go through. So
particularly as it affects so many people in so many different ways. And in the UK, we don't use the term handicap. It has roots in those with physical disabilities begging on the street with their cap in hand. So you look for accessibility. So rather than your disability, you're looking for how you can access stuff. So it's got like that positive reinforcement. And most venues I've found since being a wheelchair user offers either a free companion or half price tickets, and a lot of support. So I'm telling all my friends, like, if there's a gallery or show you want to go to, like, bring me, like, this is really free. And you're not in the thick of it, right? And I've got overwhelm issues these days and stuff, so it would be a little bit too much. Actually, by the end of Pink, I had to put earplugs in because it was just a bit trebly. But in the process of getting access is a lot of admin. You have to prove a lot of stuff. You've got to make sure of a lot of things. If there's somebody to wheel me from this spot to this spot, have you got, like, I had to bring my wheelchairs fold up. So I took it on the tube with me for the first time while walking with my cane, and people just get out of your way. And I'm a slow walker. I'm a regal walker now.
Regal. Okay. I'm going to use that now. Okay.
I'm rushing for no one. And generally the space is set up with people who really care and they really want you to have a good time, and there's loads of space. The toilets are really close. We had people coming to us taking our drinks orders, for example, at Hyde Park, at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The disabled toilet was right next to the seat, and I would have paid to spend the night there. It was lovely. There was uplighting, there was a bed in there. It was just,
wow.
It's cool. So I would advise anyone who still wants to have that live experience but has limited mobility these days to absolutely go for it, to find what access support you can get there, see what kind of discounts you can find, because usually you can bring a companion for free or at least for a discount, and it just means that you don't have to worry about where your seat is. If you're going to be tired or anything, you can prepare for all of those eventualities ahead of time. Like, I brought like my electrolytes with me and high sodium snacks and like painkillers and all of that stuff. So just make sure that you have whatever it is that you need to feel safe and calm. So and bring someone who gets it as well. That's really helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And if I can show me your cane, because you had a badass cane.
Yeah, so when I realized that I couldn't walk for very far without having to rest, there's a couple of things that you kind of get used to. Is one, the slower pace, but also making sure everyone else understands that you're not just drunk, you have to take your time. So I was like, well, if I'm gonna get a cane, I'm gonna get a skull topped one. Like, all of my jewelry is like Great Frog and Scully and all of that stuff. So I'm gonna be rocking this as well. And this also gets people out of your way.
Yes, it does.
So I, again, embrace it, man. Make sure that people know that you're there just as much as they are. You're going to take your time, and you're going to have a fucking great time too.
No, well said. It took me a long time to accept it, to get used to it, because I just wanted to go to a concert and not think about anything else. You know, go with not be in my head a hindrance to my friends, which it never was the case. And now just having to I got to accept it. I would want to be up front. I want to be sweaty with everybody else, but it's just something that's on my mind the entire show, where it's
you can't enjoy it. Yeah. And I found that, you know, I've got just as much pain from headbanging in my wheelchair as I did while I was in the mosh pit. So it's the same. It's the same.
And even the bathroom, because I went to when I went to Austin City Limits to see GN'R, Austin, Texas. What was it? A couple summers ago. I didn't have the wheelchair then, and this was just like where I realized I cannot go to a festival anymore physically unless I'm in a wheelchair, because walking on those hills, oh man, if I didn't have my wife, like I was holding on to her, like it would have been impossible. I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Absolutely not. Accept your limits and work within them, and it's fine. And people get out. I mean, you have to shout at people sometimes, but they'll get out of your way. Like,
oh, I have a big mouth. I go. I don't know if you guys have seen. And I'll tie it into Guns N' Roses. This was posted by Del James, that he had a short cameo in one of the Police Academy movies, which is just like, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen Star Wars or Doctor Who, but I've seen all 7 Police Academy movies. So I don't know what this says about
we
me.
really need to talk about your films.
I have a problem.
We need to educate you.
So yeah, he had a short. He was one of the people stealing TVs from Police Academy 6, City Under Siege. So
they made 6.
They made 7 when they're in
Oh,
Moscow. That's the worst one, if you want to know. Number 7 is the worst one. But I think of Captain Harris always going, move it, move it, move it. So I always do that, or I go beep, beep, beep on my own car horn. I'm so annoying.
I do find, and this comes from being a well-spoken Brit, I suppose. If you sound like a teacher, people start moving. So at one point I was like,
they get terrified. That's why.
And they start moving.
No.
So that's also helpful.
Okay, I'm the asshole New Yorker. I'm like, handicap, move, please, move. Look, please look. Who's handicapped here? Pay attention. So
Excuse the fuck me.
I'm an asshole. Jason, where are you sitting? I don't know if it was as were you up? You said you were up front, right? You were like 3 rows behind.
So I found it quite interesting, actually, the way that Hyde Park's set up. It clearly was set up to make a lot of money. It sounds a bit weird because I was telling my friends about this the other day, and it sounded like I was just bitching about it all, but I wasn't. I really enjoyed it. So you have the stage and then the Golden Circle, which went out a really long way. It went out to the sound desk, and that's a lot further than any gig I've seen before. And then on top of there, they had a VIP, and then like House Right, they had a VIP thing, and there was a lot of VIP areas, which were a financial upgrade from your general admission tickets, because it was all standing. And I'm always, like we said earlier, like to get towards the front. I kind of don't care if the sound's bad. I just want to embrace that whole live experience of everybody jumping up and down in unison or singing in unison. That whole thing. Kind of not worried if I can only hear Slash because I'm too close. You know, I can only hear the drums. So what, man? It's still fun. So anyway, so I was about 4 or 5 people back from the barrier that was then into the Golden Circle. So it's actually quite a long way back. And I think that Golden Circle and where I was what created some problems, which we can talk about in a minute, to say the least. So I had a good view, and it was still fun.
Okay, good. So, I mean, I understand the because nowadays it just seems like bands are only making money when they're on tour. That's the
Yeah.
only way to do it, just the way music sales, the music business is nowadays. And
Well,
it's
there
not
isn't
that,
there isn't music sales, is there? You know, it's all Spotify, and they don't make any money. Merchandise, touring, done.
yeah, yeah, and merch.
Yeah,
So there's a level of understanding why they need to have these VIP and
yeah,
golden circles, and it's my fault that I'm not a doctor that I can't afford these things, I guess. But it is what it is. But I guess combining that with the handicap, I feel like I'm never gonna have that experience that you have where I know I'm not gonna be bouncing up and down, but I have visions. You see of that picture of the guy in a wheelchair being like
yeah.
crowd surfed. I'm like, that would be amazing if that happened with me, but
Just come over here, Brando. We'll sort you out, mate.
okay, cool.
We'll
Just
check
take
you
me
up
out
there.
of it. Just throw me around,
Yeah,
just like a lawn dart. That's fine. I'll land on the grass or something. It's
we'll
okay.
find you. Don't worry.
Excellent. But what was I guess the issue there with the golden
So,
circle for you?
so the problem, and I keep having to say, I really, really had a great time, and I actually think it was one of the best gigs that they've done since I've seen them. But the problem being, when you're that far back, you have people who naturally want to be that far back, and you have people who want to be in the thick of it but can't afford to. And so where we were, as I say, it was me and my girlfriend, and there was a old guy and his wife in front of me, and an old guy's probably about my age behind me, and his kid. And I turned around and I looked, and his kid was standing on one of those, I don't know what you call it, like a little plastic step for when they want to pee in the toilet but they can't reach.
Okay.
You know, like a little folding up version of that. And the guy in front of me had no shoes on, took his shoes off just before it started. And I was like, this is a rock concert. It's like, you're going to lose those shoes straight away, and like, you're going to get barged off that thing because we're right near the front. And I don't think they realized we were at that front, if you get what I mean. Like, I don't know a better way of saying it, sorry. So
I understand.
yeah, and so as soon as it started, we ended up being with, there was 2 Argentinian guys, a couple of Argentinian girls, and 3 people that were from North London, actually, because we got talking to them. And they were like in their 20s, and they just wanted to have fun, and they were absolutely loving it, and they were jumping up and down, and they were singing every word. And the grey-haired guy in front was having none of it. He got super pissed off as soon as it started, and he turned around and he shoved them, and he's like, "Don't effing push me, blah blah." And he pushed them into me, and I fell into the guy behind me with the kid.
Oh
And then
my
he
God.
shoved us back, and I was like, "Guys, like, everyone calm down. This is a rock concert. I've paid good money to forget about my problems, enjoy the music that I absolutely love with people who are all doing the same thing." And they just, for, I don't know, the good first quarter of the show, were just constantly arguing, these people around us.
Oh my God.
And it was really, like, I don't want to put a tinge on it, but I wanted to tell people that this was a thing. But it's not acceptable. The guy behind me got super pissed off with anybody. And there was a lady walking past with a drink, and he shoved her and was like, "Don't come near me. Don't come near my kid." The lady was miles away. She was nowhere near him. Oh,
You're back.
sorry. Did I just mute myself?
No,
Can you hear me?
you muted the picture for a second, but you're back. See,
Sorry.
that guy is back. The guy's back. He's shoving you off Zoom.
Oh, yeah, I know,
He
right?
followed
Just
you
like
home.
that. Elbow in the back of Zoom.
Yep.
Amazing. Yeah, so like, it's really strange. And I think that's possibly, like I said, because of the location, for starters. And I think those people naturally wanted to be that far back. I don't want a mosh pit near me. Okay, it's Guns N' Roses. You don't get mosh pits, but you do get people jumping up and down and singing. And that's what these young lads were doing. And they were so nice. So, like, we made friends with them, and we had a really good time. So it was a good sort of 100, 150, 100 meters back, maybe, thinking about it, as the house left. So in line with the giant oak tree, which is a bit of a random thing. There's a giant oak tree that came out of the stage.
Yeah, because I saw. Before I forget, I want to thank this guy, because he could have been the third person on here, but he's actually going to see ZZ Top tonight. James
nice.
William Ray, he gave me some pictures and I shared on my social media, and you can see Slash and Duff in front of this giant. I'm like, is that a giant tree? Like,
Yeah, it's a giant oak tree. It just comes out of the stage.
Is it real? Is it a real tree?
Yeah, I intently looked. Now I'm going to say it's real, and someone's going to correct me, obviously, online. But why would you put a fake tree in there? It's got to be real, right?
Yeah, it's to evoke the fact that we're in a park.
Yeah,
very much in line with nature, I'm sure.
I like it. It's just so. It was just so funny, just like, because Guns N' Roses has this great stage presence, and you see all the graphics that go behind them, and
which were amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, great!
Insane.
And shout out to Creative Works UK, I believe, that does that. But just to see this giant tree randomly, I'm like, did he edit those into his pictures? No, that's really what it was. That's what it was like. That's crazy. But no, to your point, that can make or break a concert. And Axl's always been good at that. If he ever sees anyone fucking around, it's so funny when you ever see an article about like Dave Grohl stopping a show or certain artists stopping a show now. You know, Axl has this reputation of being angry and jumping into these stands, but he did that to protect other fans. I don't think people understand that about the St. Louis riot. The pictures thing, he's like, that guy's taking pictures. That was more of like to get the security's attention that was doing nothing while that famous guy, Stump, whatever, was pushing people around, pushing. So Axl's always been like that, the safety of fans. So you have to be, you bought the ticket. No one's trying to suppress the good time you're having. Because sometimes if you go to like an older show, like when I went to my wife and I, we saw Fleetwood Mac at the Garden a couple years ago, and that demographic of fan, they're going to sit down. They're going to sit down for the most part.
But that's expected, right?
Yeah, but then you might have the younger people stand up. Yeah. And my wife wanted to stand up, but you're aware. Am I blocking anybody? But at the same time, you want to have a good time. So those things do happen. But when it gets like physical, that's just be aware. It's enough.
Do you think it's something to do with just coming out of the pandemic? Like we've had some issues in theatres about audiences not knowing how to behave. Do you think it was something to do with that, Jason?
It's funny you should say that, Amy. So I was actually speaking to my friend Bella about it. She's a metalhead that goes to my gym. And she was saying the same thing. And she's considerably younger than me. And we were just chatting about it. And I was like, this is what the problem was. Guy was, like elbowing me in the back, saying he wanted to have a fight, this, that, and the other. And she said the same thing. She'd just been to Download. And she said and she goes to a lot of gigs. And she was saying it's such a change since the pandemic. It's like people don't know how to act. And she said it was harder at Download than it's been in the past for her. And she went to see Paramore, maybe, I think. And her exact phrase was snowflake Gen Zs, I think is what she said. And like they don't know how to act since the pandemic. And it genuinely, I mean, these guys weren't Gen Zs, but that doesn't matter. That's not how you act. And the guy kept saying, oh, it's my kid who he's with, it's his first gig. And I was like, brilliant. But don't stand next to him saying that guy's brain dead, that guy's a degenerate, effing this, and picking fights with people. The kid's not going to enjoy it. I spoke to the kid. I was like, you having a good time? Can you see? If you can't see, hey, let's move you 5 people forward and you can stand at the rail. I just don't. Yeah. Anyway, let's forget them. They're dickheads. Let's forget about them.
But that's something still worthy of mentioning. And I'm glad that you did, because you're right. We've all become a little bit more insulated, or just, we want to be in our own little bubble, since we were all in our own little bubbles for a couple of years. But this is the joy, the release that we've gotten out of it, that the shows that were canceled, the concerts that were canceled, that we get to have fun with our fellow gunners out there, that we have to take care of each other, which you do see for the most part. But these things, they do happen. I'll never forget. And again, this is before there was the wheelchairs new. I don't think I was using the cane at the time. The one and only Ozfest that I went to, I wish I went to more, but It is what it is.
Instantly jealous, just so you know. I don't even care who was on. I'm just instantly jealous.
It
of
was.
Ozfest.
It might have been 02 or 04. I went to a lot of concerts in those specific years, but Korn was playing. Korn was honestly, I'm a fan. It made me more of a fan. They're one of those bands that they are so good live. It's just like, wow. So it was at PNC Bank Arts Center in New Jersey where they have all the seats up front, but then there's a lawn surrounding the back. And the lawn's on a decline. So the lawn is kind of going down towards the stage. And just how I mentioned how I'm at Velvet Revolver, and before I got a cane and everything, I would always want to hold on to the railing in front of me. So that's what I was doing. I was holding onto the railing in front of me, and I was fine. I couldn't have stood on a hill, stood on a slope. That was the word I was looking for the entire time. So I was fine. But then there was this little mosh pit behind me starting to form. Fine. I'm out of the way. And that's another short story. I had a friend save me from getting trampled. The band, the Suicide Machines, at a Warped Tour, they did the Braveheart thing where they split the audience in two parts, and I didn't know what was going on. I just go on one side of it, and my friend Elizabeth grabs me by the arm, pulls me back by the sound booth to hold on to it, and then the whole crowd just ran into each other. I might be dead. I might be dead. So I'm holding on at the Korn show, Ozfest, and as they're moshing, the guy starts to like tumble into me because they fall down and they're falling down this slope. And I remember I just got, because the railing was waist high, knocked the wind out of me completely. I'm like, and one of the security guards is like, come on, like, I'll take you out. No, I'm fine. I'll get it back. I'm fine. And then I remember this big Puerto Rican guy puts his arm around me and he's like, I got you, buddy. I got you for the rest of the show. No one's going to hit you. And little 5'6" me, I'm like, okay, thanks, buddy. So yeah, just be aware of, because you never know, the kids that are around you, people like Amy, people might, I don't know if they judge you because they judge me. Maybe not so much in the wheelchair now. Are you really handicapped? Are you something really wrong with you? You know, and they don't really.
I don't give a shit. Like, it's none of their business.
Shit, but the people aren't aware.
Invisible illnesses is that I don't need to prove anything to you. I've done the paperwork. I'm on the benefit. I've done all of the application and all of the administration. It's got nothing to do with you, and I don't have to prove myself to you. So I don't care. And if they're judging me, anything that they're thinking about me, they're thinking about themselves. So it's got nothing to do with me. That's how Prince would word it. It's how I'm going to word it. What they think about me, they think about themselves. It's none of my business.
But they may not. Aside from that, of course, you shouldn't care. They might not be aware that you have a disability. Like for me, again, before the cane, they just thought I was walking. They just thought I was walking cool. Even with the cane, I got that. People were like, "Oh, I thought you were trying to like look like a pimp." Yeah, that's the look that I'm going for. But people, it's like they don't realize, unless you're in a wheelchair, they may not realize, and they bump into you. And that happens to me a lot. I don't know what it is about me, maybe because I'm short and skinny. People always like to go around me, find their way through the crowd through me, and I'm very knockdownable. So it's like they push me, and then I would try to, like, I would hold on to somebody else, but prevent myself from falling. And that's when I realized I can't be in the among the ruckus anymore.
Yeah, so I think I just avoid the crowds now. If I can't sit down, then I won't join it.
Yeah, no, I'm that way too. So for the actual show now,
get to that.
Give me some highlights, because I've only seen videos, which I've enjoyed. Especially the one with Axel and Bad Obsession. We're talking about being handicapped. I fall all the time, so Axel falling is not funny. If anything, it was pretty like smooth. He did like a twirl and like popped right back up and didn't miss a beat during Bad Obsession. So
a very quick recovery. But how great was it to see Bad Obsession?
That's amazing.
I'm looking forward to. So I guess, yeah, Amy, if you want to take me through some of the highlights, maybe you caught your sister looking over at a certain point that you guys had a moment. What were some highlights of the show?
Well, I had gone to last year's show, which had been delayed from May 2020 to June. No, actually, today's the anniversary of it, so 2nd of July 2022, was the second day at Tottenham, and the set was like 2/3 of what it had been the night before because of the sound issues that they'd had. So I missed out on a lot of the tracks. But I actually got all of the set lists of the gigs that I've seen. So they're on a spreadsheet right in front of me. So the new ones that I hadn't seen before, which I don't think they've done actually live. So they had Bad Obsession, which went down a storm. It was amazing. Reckless Life, Pretty Tied Up. I hadn't seen Hard School live, which was wicked. Down on the Farm as well. Duff doing TVI, and Anything Goes was so good to see. I lost my mind at Estranged, but I think Slash was too quiet for that. I couldn't.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was terrible.
That too.
He just dropped so quietly. It was like, I don't understand how Guns N' Roses are the biggest rock band in the world and they can't employ a guy who can do sound.
It didn't make any sense. Yeah, it was quite weird. So it was great to see those like things like Reckless Life and Pretty Tied Up. They're not usual bangers that they bring out, but it was nice to see how they were kind of switching stuff up and just playing around with it. So I thought Bad Obsession was amazing. Knocking on Heaven's Door, they really milked the ending. They were doing it for minutes and it was great. And I hadn't seen Coma for a while either. So Coma was like, that was really fun just to see them kind of really lean into that.
What about Absurd? Are you a fan of Absurd?
I really enjoyed Absurd. They just lost their mind with it. They really went for it. It was really fun. It's always fun when you see Slash bend down a little bit, where he's just really like putting his whole right shoulder into the guitar. And so that was really fun just to see them really go for it in Absurd, because it's a mad track that
I must admit with Absurd, just to jump on this, it's like when it came out, I was like, oh my God, amazing. There's a new song. Isn't this great? And I played it about 3 times and was like, oh, I'm really not feeling it. Whoops. And I felt really bad about that. And I know, Brando, you have had it on the show a few times, discussions about it and how much, it was a new song, it was great, and blah, blah. And there was something about it this time round that just completely clicked, completely changed. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. And I think it is that whole thing we were talking about earlier. It's the energy and a vibe that you can't put a thing on. And I don't think you get that listening to a record per se. You get a certain vibe and feeling. But live, obviously, it's different. And it just was Slash enjoying it. Axl doing a performance of the whole day. His performance was incredible.
He gave it everything.
Yeah, and I think during that, he was enjoying it, and he was like, hey, look, this is new-ish, right? This is new. It's not Silkworms. This is new. I've got this energy about it. He was having a great time. He clearly was enjoying himself, and you could really feel it through that and a couple of the other tracks. But it really was a pivotal, like, oh, fuck, I actually really like this.
I feel the same, because I thought Absurd, I didn't get it. It didn't make sense to me. It was from that Chinese democracy era, and they were releasing it together, and I was like, why are we trying to, if we're going to go back, let's go Velvet Revolver, let's go Slash the Snake Pit, like, let's draw them out. I'd love to see some of those. But just, it's unapologetic Absurd. It just goes, and it's like you were talking about a pussy full of maggots, for God's sake. It makes no sense. Hard School is kind of fun, and it's kind of got that weird, like Green Day, funky, like sassy kind of pop punk vibe to it. But Absurd is just unrelenting, and it's just that kind of scream, and I didn't get it until I saw it as well. So I was like, okay, I'm on board. This is cool.
Yeah, and I like since they added because it has that Down on the Farm voice to it. So I'm glad that that's in the set too, because it kind of shows you that Axl is still, that's the way he likes to sing sometimes. And
he's really honoring that British accent punk. Down on the Farm is a really British song, and the way even there's like Down on the Farm, like that's exactly how like
Bomb on the
Which
UK
is
subs,
subs.
right?
insane, you know, like, so they're really showing their roots there. And that's what was really fun, when you can see them really having a good time. And it was the first time they did it, because it was at Glastonbury, wasn't it? And
It
just,
was. Yeah.
which is on Worthy Farm. And, you know, they're in a park at Hyde Park, may as well be a farm. And it was kind of cute and cheeky, and I really enjoyed that.
I'm really glad they added that in the set for Glastonbury. I have a little group of mates who are all, again, Jake, Mark, and Neil, all old friends of mine from very early on. And we were like, oh, what are they going to play? Blah, blah. And I was like, they've got to play down on the farm at Glastonbury. And as soon as it started, I was like on WhatsApp going, told you. Yeah.
I love it.
And then when he played it at Hyde Park, I was really, I was stoked about that as well. Because again, UK subs, great, good cover, Spaghetti Incidents, great record. And it was a nice treat to have that for sure.
It's interesting why they seem to have waited to change up the set list a lot. I was never one of those that says like they never change it, because there were tweaks here and there, and there were moments where somebody would pass Chris Cornell, Glenn Campbell, and they would play covers. But they just didn't seem to shake things up at all until this time around, and it's met with such fanfare. You know, Bad Obsession and Pretty Tied Up. I can't wait. I've never seen them live, and I can't wait.
And Reckless Love as well. And I was looking at the set list of the gigs I've seen before. There was 6 new tracks that they'd not played in the last tour that they did on Friday. So I love how they've been digging back and bringing out some new stuff which will have not been released. Nobody would know it unless you really listen to the albums, which is kind of great for a smug fan. Bad Obsession is for me.
But I was really like talking about Reckless Life as a great track at Hyde Park. I was lucky enough that they played it in Lisbon when I saw them last year. And the reaction to the crowd was quite funny, because it's quite different being at a place where English isn't a first language, because they sing the guitar solos more than they sing the choruses. And it was a very weird thing for me. I was like, what is going on? And then I suddenly went, oh, of course, like there's a lot of words in here. You know, I know the Reckless Life part, but I don't know the beginning. Anyway, so Reckless Life came on, and I genuinely felt like the only person that knew what that song was. And I was singing away, and my girlfriend was looking at me like, why are you the only person singing? I was like, they haven't played, like, I couldn't tell you when they played this. You know, and I think most of the people there weren't as deep as probably we are. And it was the same at Hyde Park. That came on, and I was like, wow, perfect. Same with Bad Obsession. Sorry to jump on the same things you were saying, Amy.
Yeah.
No, that's what you're here for. We're all jumping on each other, talking about the same thing, you know.
But Bad Obsession, when Slash came out and he hadn't even played a note, and he's playing his 70s Travis Bean guitar geek that I am, I looked and I was like, that's his original Travis Bean. I know exactly what he's going to play. Yeah,
That's cool.
exactly. And then he started, I was like, yes. Yeah, it's such a great song. It's such a blues rock tune.
It was, and there's such a, again, it feels really inappropriate to use this word. It's real sassy. It's just really.
That's
it's
not
really
inappropriate.
It's
That's
great.
completely true.
There's such a, you know, like a neck movement to it. I don't know why they've switched out Better though from Chinese Democracy. I was like, no, that's not, you know, that was.
So I've got a bit of a
better
theory.
than Chinese Democracy.
I've got a bit of a theory about the set list in general, if I'm honest. And I think what it is, I think the reason, obviously we can discuss it, but I think Axel is singing better than he has in years. And people who are in the press hating on it, I call bullshit on all of them people. But I genuinely think he's singing better. I think he looks better. I think he's having more fun. And I think he's gone, hey, do you know what? Reckless Life is up here. You know, like I'm singing like here. And when I get there, I'm a bit shonky in the past, or, you know, and he's like, do you know what? Fuck it. Let's do it, guys. And I think that's why you're getting Bad Obsessions, you know, and other little things in there. And I think it's just because he's feeling it. I don't think it's got anything to do with the other guys. Like Slash can play that all day. Richard can play that all day. You know, Dizzy, everybody, Duff, the whole lot. I think that has been a limiting factor. And I think he's pushed through that.
And And
So he's getting the songs that push his vocal range up because he can handle it now.
I
Yeah,
thought
and
you're more of you're a music. I'm not a musician, so you could tell me. It seems like Bad Obsession pretty tied up down on the farm. They're all the lower register. So I'm
yeah,
wondering if
so
he's using these songs to kind of save it for when he does have to hit the high notes, where it's not just
I,
him
you're
screaming.
completely right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
well,
wondering if it's kind of the placement of it, because I mean the vocal muscles. I mean, he's got to wake them up, even though he does sound check and he's been singing for his entire life. He's 61, so I think it might be easier to sing "It's
yeah.
So Easy" into Bad Obsession than to just start out firing, hitting those octaves, so that it might be more difficult for him now
Can you
to
imagine
do.
coming out with? I know this would be ridiculous, but coming out and trying to sing "Paradise City" as the first song.
Right.
No, it's not going to happen. And he is doing this thing where he is singing, like you said, the first 6 or 8 songs. I don't have a set list in front of me to say, but the first 6 or 8 songs, you're completely right, Brando. It is the lower register, and he's singing them much better. And he's not doing that falsetto high that he's famous for, but he can't really get there anymore. So he's like, hey, actually, I'm going to sit in this middle register, and he is absolutely killing it.
Really is. He sounded amazing. And the sound
Yeah.
was great too. You could actually hear it much better than what you heard on TV at Glastonbury, I thought.
And it's the power. I think the thing is, like, he does have power there, right? And all of these people, again, I keep saying it, but all of these people who say he hasn't got power and he can't sing high, you're at the wrong fucking gig. You're not watching it. You're just writing it because you want to be salacious, right? Listen to it. Learn what music is, right? He was so good at Hyde Park, so much better than Glastonbury, so much better.
I agree.
But, and I think it is that beginning of that set list, a little bit lower, then we go up into a little bit falsetto. And there was a couple of songs, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Might have even been Slither, actually, where it is that little bit higher. And I was like, I just want to sort of grab hold of him sometimes and go, just sing everything a bit lower. Yeah, like, because you're so good. Yeah, like, but
it's song selection, because I'm wondering, like with Slither, which is the I have the set list in front of me. It's the 4th song in this set. Why he again, we're all playing quarterback here, Monday morning quarterback, thinking there are other songs of Velvet Revolver that could be more in that register that you could do. Why?
But how iconic is that song as a Velvet Revolver song? My God.
I remember when I first heard it when they did it in Berlin. So it was the 2nd year of their Not in This Lifetime tour. And I lost my mind because the first thing I thought was like, wow, your ego can handle playing a Slash track now. This is well done, Axel. I was also proud of him. But it's wicked. Like he does that Scott Weiland so well. And I think it really shows him off well as well. I think it showcases stuff early on, which is always a good thing. So I'm glad that they've kept it.
Yeah.
I want them to keep it, but I was on a little bit of a Velvet Revolver kick this past weekend. I'm like, I would love to hear "Set Me Free" live. If he did,
I would love to hear "By the Sword" from Snake
with Andrew Stockdale from Wolf Mother.
Yeah, I think Axel could handle that. Like that would be.
I think they'd do a brilliant version of Dr. Alibi.
Dr. Alibi with Lemmy.
I think that would be amazing with either Axel singing it or even Duff singing it.
Yeah, I could see that. I believe Todd Kearns does that now when they're out on on tour. But I love, though. I want them because I like it's interesting to see Slash Duff play Chinese Democracy stuff. If they added more from that era that wasn't Guns N' Roses. So if they did add another Velvet song, or if, as you mentioned, Amy, earlier, if they played a Slash's Snake Pit song, I mean, that would be insane. But it goes back to when we're all watching Glastonbury and we're all aware of the reviews. Unless you're diehards like us, we think Bad Obsession is a deep cut. But I mean, this band only has so many songs, by the way.
Yeah.
People were angry that they weren't playing the 5 songs that they know. It's like, what are you going to do for 2.5 hours in a set? Like, that's
where I'm going with it, because tell me the reaction that you saw when both Welcome to the Jungle came on and Sweet Child of Mine. I feel like every time I go, even though, I mean, I don't want to say I'm sick of it, but there are other songs I want to hear. those are the biggest reactions. It's like sweet child, oh shit! Like they weren't going to play it. Yeah, so it's
But
was it the same thing
it is
there?
it is that sort of, and I hate to say it because I sound like a gatekeeper, and that's not what I mean. That is because those guys are not deep cuts. They don't. What's Bad Obsession? Never heard of it. What are you on about?
Right.
You know, they probably think Knocking on Heaven's Door is a Guns N' Roses song.
Right.
You know, yeah, Sweet Child of Mine, of course it is. It's their huge song. You know, Sweet Child of Mine, Paradise City, Welcome to the Jungle. They're iconic. They've been in computer games. They've been on, TVs. Sorry, say again.
They were in Thor as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
Thor.
do you know?
Film.
And
The
Basically,
only
under-
reason I went to go see Thor in theaters was to see that.
the needle
I know
drops. are good.
equally, I think that's why you get the younger crowd that we were talking about earlier. That's
Yeah.
how to be introduced to it.
And they played Guitar Hero and they love
Yeah.
it. Like Welcome to the Jungle, and you were in the crowd, so I was like way back. You started seeing them really lose it, and they were like pogoing, and that was really cool. For Sweet Child of Mine, all the cameras came out.
Okay.
Yeah, that was so random. Like, it's so funny how everyone did want to be into it, and then it was like mobile's not moshing for Sweet Child of Mine. Yeah, it's like,
Because that's a moment. If that's your first time seeing them, that's the moment to share. Like I got to see Slash and Axl, Guns N' Roses play Sweet Child of Mine. Here's this moment that I could tell my kids about years later.
and to be fair, like as we're having this conversation of the first time I saw him in 1992, I've got one photo from then, and it's like terrible. And my friend Jake shared it with me recently. It's like the back of a couple of people's heads in the stage. That was it. You know, imagine, because I'd be saying to you guys and everybody watching and listening to this, hey, look at this cool photo that I took in 1992. So I do berate those people when I'm there. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, man. Like, take one picture, put your phone away. Cool. Take 10 pictures. Job done. Get on with it. Enjoy it. But then the other side of me goes, oh, shit. Imagine if I'd done that in 92, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'd be sharing those with you now. So I'm kind of like a 60-40, put your phone away, 40%. Oh, man.
Okay.
Like, I wish.
Yeah, no, take a few, but don't tape the entire show.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whenever Slash and Axl were on the screen together at the same time, that's when my phone would come. I was like, look, it's proof they're together. I just got so touched by the fact that they're friends again. I just thought, and the only time when Slash moved, so I'm always stage left, so I'm on Slash's. I've got a Slash tattoo, but I don't know if that's come across. I'm a Slash fan.
Are you able to show it?
Oh yeah, so it's the skull with a top hat from Appetite, and then it's on my forearm, and then the conch shells from his top hat around it. So it's like a bracelet.
Amy, you're going to hate me if I tell you that I saw Slash's Snake Pit back in the day as well.
I'm not going to hate you. I'm going to revere you. And I'm so happy that you had that experience. And I don't know anyone who's been there. That's cool.
Very cool. Yeah, me neither. I don't know if I know anyone who's been to a Snake Pit show.
That was Donington. I'm going to say 1993, but I'm not sure if it was that. There was Pantera was on, Pride and Glory, which is another one of my huge bands that I'm really into. So sorry to.
But yeah, no, I'm that's cool as hell. I'm always on the side where Slash is. And the only time he moved was to right at the back for November Rain. Which is also when it started raining, because they're that powerful as rock gods. They control the weather. And you forget how good Axl is on the keys. Like, he's a really good piano player. And he sounded great. And did you know that that's what he played at Lisa Marie Presley's funeral?
Yeah.
He played it, just him, like the full song.
Yeah. And
so
critics came out for that one too, but it's just like, you're at a funeral. I don't think this is a performance to criticize. You know, when it was really an odd circumstance that Lisa requested, or the family requested, that he do that.
Yeah, but that went down, and I didn't see that last year, so that was one of the tracks that was cut from the set last year, so it was really good to see that. I love it.
Kind of feels like to me, it feels like a staple. Like, you've got to do November Rain, you've got to do Welcome to the Jungle, and they didn't play it last time.
They didn't. No, the ones that they'd cut last year were really like, it was only a 20 song set. Last year there were loads that they didn't do. I
love the way that we all sit here going, oh, it's only 20 songs. That is most bands. Like, I'm not being funny.
Exactly. I've been
spoiled.
thinking about that. I believe it was Paul McCartney who recently was crediting Bruce Springsteen, saying he's set the bar. He's playing 3-hour shows, 3.5-hour shows. I'm like, what about Axel? What about like, he's been doing it, and he moves a lot more than Bruce.
But Bruce and Axel do the same thing. I don't know if you know this. They don't have a set list.
Okay.
They just shout out the songs, and the guitar techs have to sprint around, change guitars, do whatever. They have the staples of, do you know what the encore is going to be? Da 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 da. But he goes, oh, I'm feeling this song, and then they just start it.
Wow.
So if you ever see, there's quite a few interviews with Richard Fortus about it, and he said, yeah, you know, Axel controls the set, he just rattles it off, and Bruce Springsteen famously turns to the band and just shouts out a song, doesn't have it written down, and then they just start playing it.
Did you know that they usually go off at the end of Sweet Child of Mine, or November Rain and Patience and that Civil War, I think. But near the end, and this time Axel went, we're not going to do the showbiz thing and go off.
Yeah.
We're just going to stay, because he was clock watching. He was going, I'm aware of curfew, so we're just going to keep going. And thanks so much. And that's when they kind of ended. I think, well, I quite like that. It just,
I think that was part of the fact that he was having fun again.
yeah,
I think he was like, you know what, I'm having fun. We don't need to walk off. We don't need to, you know, do a fake encore. Let's just get on with it, guys. Like, you're here. Go. Sorry.
Oh,
Anyway,
I love that. I love that. And that goes back to it shows how much he's changed since the 90s, because back then obviously there was a lot more chaos, and he really did change the set list, and you didn't know what was coming, especially during the conversations I had with Tracy and Roberta, and they weren't used for every song, and so they would be off the stage, and then you just would have to run up whenever it was appropriate to run back up on the stage. And I think I mentioned this last episode that Axel would just be like, how much are the fines? You know, just pay it. Just pay whatever it is.
Bag of money, right?
Yeah, just pay it. I don't care. I'm going to go on whatever I want.
By the way, the interview with the backing singers was a genius. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So because they were always, again, being a 90s child of it, they were always a staple of in the back. Guns N' Roses back then, as they do now, didn't put anything on tape. If it was on the record, we're playing it. We're going to have extra musicians. We're going to have like harmonica players, blah, blah. And they, you know, carried that on now. And to see them back then was brilliant. And to hear them on the show, it was really good. Really cool.
It's still a goal of mine to have Tracy and Roberta on at the same time. Yes. I would love to have them on at the same time, which I know it's hard, but yeah, it's Roberta and Tracy. They're both sweethearts, absolute sweethearts. Yeah.
And shout out to Melissa Reese for holding fort with backing.
Oh my God.
And every single other instrument.
Yeah. I noticed that with November Rain you were mentioning. She sings that part now, like kind of like the chorus, right? So
good at it live. She's just so good live, and I think her and Richard are the two sort of underrated people in this band. You know, when she was doing November Rain, it was spectacular. You were saying earlier, you know, like obviously Axel comes out and he's sat on his Harley Davidson piano and he's playing away. He was brilliant playing. I really would, like you said, I was quite surprised he's still that good. And then Slash went to the back of the stage behind Melissa. The rain and roses and the whole visual thing just looked incredible. And then Melissa started singing, and I was like, you know what? She doesn't get the praise. She's in the back. She's loving it. And her and Richard Fortus, again, I'm a massive Richard Fortus fan, so I could be here for hours. But just both criminally underrated in what they do.
They give everything. And I read the story about how they got Melissa. She was a local musician that somebody had dropped out, I think. And they were like, yeah, but can she learn everything in 3 weeks? And she learned everything in 3 weeks. And this was 7 years ago. And she's just held her spot with the biggest, hardest rock band in the world and can hold her own and can keep everything.
And pulled off the best outfits known to man.
Yeah. And there's something about like, I wish you dressed more rock, but at the same time, it's like,
no,
sequence, that's your thing. You do your thing, and that's you do too. And it's just
like a spacesuit, like onesie cool that she wears. I love it. I'm a huge fan. I wish she came on the podcast because she got the job when Chris Pittman got fired. That he,
Right.
just,
Okay.
he went on Twitter and saying this was a cash grab, which you should not do. You're going to lose your job. And since Brain and her used to date and they're friends and they make music together, he's like, how about her? So I always think I love that because Brain is the one that got Frank in there. And I
Yeah,
think
long time ago.
Richard came first too. So it's like
So
they all have their own
Richard
little
and Frank.
circle.
Richard and Frank have played in about 4 bands together.
The New York buddies. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Richard's from St. Louis, but I mean, they played in a lot of
New York.
New York bands together. And I gotta say, because I'm not a drummer, I'm not a musician, I really can't hear the difference. People complain about Frank's drumming. I have no issue with it. I love his presence, just like Richard and Melissa. I think they're the right people. I think Axl always gets the right people. It may sound different, even with Buckethead and things like that. I just think he gets the right members to put in to make it a little bit like special, that version of it.
I would love to see Steve though.
Sure.
Just the kind of the wildness of him. I would love to see that live one day.
I would too. As somebody who's never seen it, I would have liked it's kind of to be, he's part of it. If he's not physically able to do a 3-hour show or whatever it is, but I'm sure it all comes down to business and what people are paid and lawyers and I mean, it happened twice. We're lucky it happened twice, I guess. So we'll see if it happens again.
Could we talk a minute about songs that we would like in the set list? Because I know you asked that on Twitter a lot, Brando, and I would just love to know what you would love to see and what is like a glaring omission.
Yeah, it's your episode. So what do you want to see? What do you want to see? What do you want to hear?
I'm really surprised that My Michelle is never on.
Didn't they just add that back recently? But I was surprised.
I did see that in Portugal.
I was surprised though that it was taken. It hadn't been played since 2018, 2000, like before the pandemic. I didn't even realize for some reason that they had
I've not
taken
seen
it
it.
off.
It's not been on a set list I've seen. That and Get in the Ring, I would lose my mind. If I saw Get in the Ring live, would be and it seems very topical.
Get in the Ring, especially since the GN'R's Twitter called out those two rag riders.
Too right. Good on him.
I mean, Fall Out Boy just updated. We didn't start the fire with new references from Billy Joel's. So why can't we get an updated Get in the Ring?
Yeah.
We can do it.
So actually, just before we go on that, Axl did mention in his very Axl way about being pissed off about the people reviewing concerts that blatantly aren't there.
What did he say?
I can't remember how he said it, Amy. I don't know if you noticed, but he had a little dig of like, don't say I'm shit at singing, basically, unless you've actually been to the gig. And I can't remember exactly how he said it. I'm so sorry. That's exactly what I should be able to tell you. But it was a snidey little comment that was just perfect Axl 90s. Don't dig me. I'm standing in front of the stage of 70,000 people. I guarantee I can speak to more people like that than you sell your papers nowadays, guys.
Yeah. It's true. It
wasn't like the big Paris 1993 rant at Warren Beatty or wherever that was, Sleep with his girlfriend. But it was just a nice little, hey, look, I'm quite happy, but don't take the piss out of me.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
After all that he's been through and the band's been through, I mean, this is such a victory lap for them. Like you're just going out of your way to be a hater, to get clicks, to be negative.
It does feel like a victory lap, but it's not in the sense of the Kiss or the Motley Crue vibe.
Yeah, well, they're wrapping it up kind of thing, but or I should say, not just a victory lap; it's a triumphant return. With this band that I don't know about you guys, I was made fun of for be my favorite band. During the Chinese Democracy era. Guns N' Roses. All the Axl jokes. I mean, if you're still making an Axl late joke in 2023, you're just not paying attention.
Guess who made the late jokes? The dickheads behind us. It's like, they're gonna be late. It'll be 3 hours. Oh God.
It's like you're late with your humor. You
paid attention.
Yeah. They were exactly on time, and just because of that, dude, I kept looking at my phone. I was like, 7:20. There you go.
Yeah, they were spot on time, and then finished spot on time. It was extraordinary.
So sorry, you were saying anyway about the songs. I'm curious about the songs that you want to hear.
other than Get in the Ring.
Yeah.
And My Michelle, which again, I'm trying to. This is why I need a producer, but I know they brought it back this year. It's not in every set. And again, I think that the last time they had played it was pre-pandemic. So
I've just not seen it. It's just they just haven't done it when I've been there.
okay, all right. So that's it, and just those
Yeah.
two. Okay.
I think so. Yeah, it's just every time you ask it, I'm like, I just want to see Get in the Ring. I want to hear him bitch. I want to hear that opening riff from Slash, and yeah, I'd love a bit more old Slash stuff. I think that'd be fun.
Okay. What about you, Jason?
Do you know, I'm terrible at remembering all these type of things, but I'm just happy they're still doing it. I don't like. This sounds terrible. Do you know what? The set that you give us is so long that I genuinely don't think for me there's anything missing. But that said, actually, I'm going to correct myself.
Mhm.
When Duff does his section where he sings one song, I did want Attitude again. I know it's old. I know it's like 30 years ago, but I was just like, oh man, I just wanted to hear it. I don't know why.
Mhm.
And I think, again, when I saw them in Lisbon, they did a cover and I recognized that and knew it and I could sing along at the top of my head. I can't remember. This time around, I'd never actually heard that song.
TBI.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I think
Is that right?
I know the song. I think he does it really well. I don't think it's as fun as Attitude.
Yeah, and I think it had a slight lull because it was. Correct me if I'm wrong again, but like I said, it's not a song I know. I'm somewhat of a muso, and I was like, oh man, that's because I'm not like a punk kid like they were. You know, I missed
Right.
that. I was a little bit later, but yeah, all right, we can all get back into certain things. And I think it, instead of coming across like Attitude or they did a Iggy Pop song last time, and most of the people knew it. I think this one, like a minority did, and it had the adverse effects of what I was hoping it would. God, my phone just muted again. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I agree with you though. Completely.
It sort of like the energy level dropped a little bit. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah,
I'd rather have Attitude back or another Iggy song, or maybe not a cover. Do So Fine. Do something from
Oh my god,
Loaded.
So Fine would be amazing.
Or do anything off of Duff's record.
Right.
And I mean his original 90s record.
Believe in Me.
Brilliant album.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
Criminally underrated, that album.
That might be, I don't know. That might be my favorite record of his, because I like Duff when he sings punky stuff. I appreciate what he did with Tenderness and his new singles, so all about mental health. But I don't know. I'm a punk fan too. I'm just like your sister, Amy. I'm a punk fan, but sometimes when punk people try to sing, very softly and nicely, it just sounds. I don't know. I'm like, that's not the voice I want to hear there. So I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'd rather hear something.
I was just looking through the old track just to see if anything came up. Dust and Bones, I think, would be really cool to see.
Yeah, okay, you got
a bit of a swing to it and breakdown. But one day to see Izzy do 14 years would be the dream.
Quick question: are you on setlist.com or whatever it is?
Setlist FM. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Could you do me a real big favor? Can you have a look at Milton Keynes 1990 whatever? Because I've got a sneaking suspicion that was played. So I've been very lucky. In the first time I saw him in '92 was Gilby was playing with them, and then when they played at Milton Keynes, Gilby had broken his arm, and Izzy came to be the stand-in for him. And now, obviously, Richard's playing with him. So I've seen him with three. I've not seen Bumblefoot and and Buckethead, but that was Axel's thing, right?
Sure. Oh, and now that because I'm also on Setlist. FM.
Cool.
I'm not looking at that, but My Michelle was played in Abu Dhabi this year.
Yeah.
And it had been played since 2017.
Oh, okay.
Which is actually kind of crazy when you think about it, because that's a big song for them. It's not like them pulling out Bad Obsession and Pretty Tied Up. I think My Michelle was more well known because it was off Appetite. So for them, it's I don't know. I don't know why it wasn't on my radar that hadn't been on the set list for quite some time.
I
So-
genuinely thought I saw it the other year, so I apologise to everyone for being a dick.
So Milton Keynes Bowl, May
Go,
30th,
go.
1993.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
They played Used to Love Her. That was great. I loved that one.
Oh, yeah.
They did
They all
not.
They all sat on a sofa and played that.
They did all sit on a sofa. It says here, acoustic band sitting on couch.
Oh, there you go.
The
Yeah, they
first-
Bring
came
back
right
the
to the front of
couches.
the
I
stage,
love
yeah.
it.
Yeah, they came out with a big sofa, put it right at the front of the stage, did Patience, I think, possibly as well.
Yeah, but they didn't do 14 years.
Oh, I must have seen it somewhere else then.
Okay.
That's such a great song.
It is. It is. And Amy, I agree with you because it was before their first show this year. And I had asked, you probably saw that's what you saw on Twitter. What are 3 songs you want to hear? You know, and I had said Pretty Tied Up and Bad Obsession. I had no idea they were going to add to it. I had no idea. And then Get in the Ring was my third one. So that's what I want to see. And I mentioned earlier in the conversation that I would like to see Slither switched out with another Velvet song, whether it be like
Which
Set Me
song?
Free,
Yeah.
Set Me Free, Fall to Pieces. I think would be
All the
great.
pieces be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are some other songs in the range. Dirty Little Thing, I think could be a lot of fun to sing live. So there's a lot of Velvet that I want to experience still live. And I'm wondering if Slash and Duff, you know, keep that flame alive. I know they are with Slither, which is great, and I don't want them to drop it. But there are other Velvet. I've seen Velvet twice, thankfully, that I want to see.
Very lucky, man. That's cool.
Very lucky because I had never seen Scott Weiland with Stone Temple Pilots. So the fact that I was able to see him still with Velvet Revolver, you know, was truly lightning in a bottle. But Jason, you've been around. You've seen more GN'R than us over time. Are there a couple songs that you want to see? Even though you're pretty content. I know you're content. Give me one. Give me one.
Oh God, I can't think. Right, this is weird because they played it, but bear with me. I'd like to see the fire put back into You Could Be Mine. That sounds controversial. So they play it now and it's a bit like, oh, I don't know. There used to be, so again, 90s version versus now, we know it's different, but there used to be a bit more grit to it and a little bit more heavy metal, punk, whatever you want to call it. There was a bit more attitude to it. And now it's a little bit,
It's the Terminator song.
you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, but I don't know. And I don't know if that's crowd participation or if it's.
I think I agree, actually. Yeah, I don't know if with
and it's such a good song. It's so good. You know, like I remember when that came out, I remember seeing Terminator just because that song had come out and I was into Guns N' Roses, had the 7-inch of it, the blah, 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 right? And it was on MTV all the time. We weren't that posh. I had to go to my friends to watch that. But it was, and it's just, it's a song that's ingrained in my history of the band. And then they play it and I don't know, it's just a bit lackluster.
Okay. You're allowed to have that opinion. Absolutely. I gotta remember, I don't want to go off YouTube clips, and I saw them last year, so I want to see what this version of Guns N' Roses brings in August. I know that's a Matt Sorum song, so I don't know if he brought something to it that
he was a powerhouse drummer. We were talking about Frank earlier. Frank plays and he's there, whereas Matt played and he's like coming forward. It's like getting Lars Ulrich in a band, he's playing stand up and
on your Milton Keynes set list on the list is Matt Sorum drum solo, which we don't get with Frank.
No. But equally, like talking of solos, and this gig, obviously, Slash used to always have an incredible solo, and now he's changed it slightly, and I like the way they've changed it in the respect of he plays a little bit on his own, and then the band come out, they jam for a bit, and then he solos over the top of it. But I thought that the Hyde Park one wasn't as good as previous ones I've seen. Again, like Slash is Slash, man. Like he's an icon. There's nothing to take away from that man ever. But I think this one wasn't. Again, I hate saying, it wasn't as good as last time. But when they played it in Lisbon, I actually went back. I never do this. I went back and I put in Slash guitar solo Lisbon and watched it on YouTube because it was just a really cool blues jam that they did. And previously he used to just stand on his own I like this
Wish You Were
reiteration.
Here and
Yeah,
Godfather theme tune and
and Rolling Stones famously with Gilby Clarke. You know,
yeah.
that was really good.
Wild Horses. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And I love his story about that. Like, they literally went, "What should we play?" And he goes, "I don't know, I could play this." And they just went out and played it. Like 2 seconds
But yeah,
before.
it was a very simple blues riff that he did on Friday. It was interesting. It was, I mean, I'm at complete peace when Slash is putting those notes in that order. Like, I need nothing. That's how sound should sound, in my view. This is all of my bodily chemicals are at one and everything is fine. But it was interestingly simple, basic, straightforward. He wasn't really playing, but I did notice, because I know every single note of all of his solos, he was kind of playing around a bit on Friday. Like, it wasn't note for note at the time. He's really good at doing that, but I think he was kind of playing a bit, which I really enjoyed.
So him and so again, going back to my Richard Fortus fandom, there's a really good interview with Richard, and talking backstage about his gear and this, that, and the other, and they're talking about guitar stuff. And he said, he's actually in an interview in a guitar shop. Apologies. And he's talking to the guy, and he's like, "What's it like playing with Slash?" And he's like, talking about guitar tones. You know, it has to have a different guitar tone because otherwise, you know, it sits around Slash. And he said, and every single night, he says, Slash is a legend. He's absolutely incredible, but he never ever plays the same thing. But it doesn't feel like he's playing something that doesn't fit, because he is obviously so good, so proficient. But as a other guitar player, he's like, that's just awe-inspiring. And he said it's pushed his playing way further than he thought it could have done, because he's having fun with it. He's not playing. And Richard then says, can you imagine if Slash played exactly the same note, for exactly the same all the time, every single song? Now, don't get me wrong, of course, like November Rain guitar solo is going to be 80% the same. Maybe the second solo is not going to be the same. There's going to be like the iconic bends in it that you hear, because that's the earworm of like, oh my god, yeah, that's that. But yeah, and so he openly says that. He's like, we have fun, we don't play the same thing, it makes us better people. And I think that's really interesting, and a good point to pick up on as well.
I think that's the beauty of a live performance. Otherwise, just listen to the album outside. Just bring a radio outside. Let's do it outside if you want to hear the same thing over and over again.
And that's it. That's that live energy, attitude, risk. You know, I know Slash doesn't, but people hit bum notes when they play live. Guess what? That's because it's live. They didn't get to do the take 32 times. He's standing on a stage, pissing with rain, not running around because it's too rainy out there. I'm getting wet. I'm playing it. I hit a bum note. So what?
I had
deal with it.
An interesting conversation with Mark Rivera from Billy Joel's band, and you know, we spoke about the time when Axl joined Billy, but for his own career, you know, he's such a humble guy. It's somebody who is worked with. He's the music leader of Ringo's All-Star Band. I mean, he was going to be a member of the Rolling Stones, but that didn't work out. So I mean, he's top tier. He's like, every night I'm going to make a mistake, every single night, and I wait for it. And I said, okay, I got out of the way. Let's keep moving. So mistakes are allowed to happen. And I think that's part of what rock and roll, why it's rock and roll. I mean, there's such thing. There's a difference between a mistake and like fucking up or ruining it. Or, I mean, those aren't like mistakes. I think it's just a breathing room, wiggle room that you're able to do with the song that's live, especially something you've been playing over and over again. And like, oh, maybe I want to do this time. So
it's funny because the same conversation is, I'm a huge Metallica fan as well, and I saw them a couple of weeks ago at Download, and there's a big thing that Kirk Hammett is saying, I'm not playing the same thing anymore. I'm not playing that solo anymore. I don't want to, because it might not be what I'm feeling in that exact moment. And he said, I'm just going to improvise, and he gets a lot of grief for it, which is weird because Slash does the same thing and doesn't get the same backlash for it. Yes, okay, Slash is better, but that's, you know, that's individual if you think he's better or not. But you know what I mean.
I do. I mean, I've had you guys on. I mean, I picked the right two people to do a review, and this has been So much fun. I know we can keep going until the next
Yeah,
gig that they
sorry.
play in the
Yeah.
UK. Let me just ask just one quick question at the end, which I usually do remember to ask people. Favorite piece of Guns N' Roses memorabilia that you have?
Uh,
It could be anything. It could be a shirt. It could be a tattoo if you wanted. It could be,
Amy, go on. I think
picture.
Amy's gonna have better ones than
Okay.
me. Go on, tell me what it
Okay.
is.
All right. So she's getting up. It's going to be a little bit of show and tell for us.
So when I saw them at Tottenham Hotspur last year, I'd splashed out on a special ticket which came with merch, and they were very kind when later on I then learned that I had mobility issues. They accommodated me really nicely. In the merch bag was a tin of appetite themed coasters.
Okay.
Coasters, right? So you've got black leather round coasters with their skulls on them,
I like it.
and I use them all the time. And my friends come over for tea because we're English. This is what we drink off, because I might have to be lying down on a sofa, but I'm still a rock and roller. So I have my rock and roll coasters.
Oh, brilliant. What about you, Jason?
I've got a couple of programs from back then, which are always, like, I don't know how they survived. I don't know how we used to buy a program, stuff it down the back of our trousers,
Right.
and it still be, like, however many years later, it's still here.
Oh
Still
yeah,
work.
wow. That's
So that's
1990. Yeah.
1993. It's got a slight mark on the front of it. But yeah, so there's that. That's pretty cool.
Well, I love how you're showing me a program, and I've only seen pictures of that online. And you have a
Oh,
Freddie
really?
Mercury poster.
Yeah, so this is the
Wow.
Freddie Mercury one. It's actually in a bag. That's how nerdy it is. So there's that. And then when I went to Lisbon, this actually happened twice when I've been to gigs in Lisbon. I picked up posters from the gigs, the lithographs, the nice artworks.
Yeah.
So I have that, but it's in another room. I got number 69 of 200. And I actually, there's a funny story that's involved in the podcast. Actually, a gentleman reached out when I put a post on one of your Instagram. Sorry, when I put a comment on one of your Instagram posts last time, I was going to the gig. Hey, I'm going to the gig. It's going to be fun. And a guy messaged me directly and said, if you're going and there's any posters, can you pick me one up? And I was like, yeah, if there is, of course I'll buy you one. He said, if you get me one, I'll pay for yours. And he, true to his word, he paid me whilst I was in the queue picking a poster up for him. So, and I packaged it up and I sent it to him.
Awesome.
And so I have that in the other room, and it's amazing. It's just dark blue, big ship. It's just incredible. So that's probably my favorite. Back in the day, I had many CDs and 7 inches and a random CD that was Japanese, a 3-inch Night Train thing.
Love
But they're all gone now, unfortunately.
Love it. I love that story too. Look at this.
I do
My
have
Instagram connecting fan. Sorry, get Amy.
Sorry, I do have an audio piece of memorabilia that Slash and Mars Kennedy did a acoustic set for Spotify. With 50 people in the room, and I was one of the people in the room, so you can hear me whooping. And they do like Anastasia. They finish with Sweet Child. It's very sweet. So it's on Spotify. They're little.
I've listened to you make noises many times.
That's me.
Oh, brilliant! I love that. Amy, Jason, Milo the cat who's joined us. I can't thank you guys enough. You guys were awesome. I tell this to fans. This is an exciting time now that Guns N' Roses is alive and well and touring. If you want to just be like these two and do a review and have a good time, just like we just had, just hit me up on Twitter. Amy messaged me on Twitter. Jason did on Instagram. Facebook, you can do the same. You can always send me an email at the AFD Podcast. Excuse me, the AFD Show at gmail.com. And by the way, I'm going to give a shout out to Bob, who messaged me because he left a comment on my YouTube where episode 31 was. And just a reminder, there are some hidden episodes that I had to make hidden due to trolling. So if you're listening to all the episodes and there are ones that are missing, message me privately and I will send them to you. And again, shout out. Sorry, you couldn't join us, James William Ray, who's singing ZZ Top currently. But he sent. If you want to check out the really good pictures that he sends, including Duff and Slash in front of a giant oak tree, just go on my social media. You can check out James's photos there. So, thank you guys so much. What time? It's is it tea time there?
Right. It's like 8 or something.
It's dinner time.
Oh, it's dinner time. Okay. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will we see the next one? Next review? Well, we'll see. The words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy. I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.